Hi, everybody. I'm Dusk. Welcome to Realm of the Sacred Roots. I wanted to talk today about shapeshifting, physical shapeshifting and mental shapeshifting. Physical shapeshifting, let's start there, is always a taboo subject that a lot of people seem to not want to deal with, actually. I find it's the ones that are curious, the ones that venture a little bit on the darker side. Those are the ones that usually want to know a little bit more about physical shape shifting. Um, there are lots of books out there, and I find the ones that are critiqued the hardest are the ones that seem to claim to give tips on physical shape shifting, and but of course the author doesn't claim to actually have the ability themselves. So I've gone through quite a few of them, and they're of course critiqued the hardest. Very few people um, will probably admit to being able to, and that's probably because very few people have the ability to physically shapeshift. Do I believe that us as humans can physically shapeshift? Yes, I'm probably one of the few. Usually, if you ask indigenous tribes or people um, who are raised in that type of environment, they'll say yes, they believe in physical shape shifting, but the majority don't. If you believe that we can do that as humans, then you're one of the rare and few that believe that. Okay, so I'm one of the few that believe that. And there are a couple of reasons why, and I wanted to give you the reasons why I believe in physical shape shifting. The first is when I was a child, I heard a story before, and I was raised Christian. I heard a story about this lady who went to hell, and supposedly Jesus took her to hell to show her what was there. And she stated, and you couldn't find the story probably online or in one of her books. I believe her name was Mary Baxter, and she stated that she saw in this fiery hell sort of like prison cells, and there was this sorcerer that was in there, and the sorcerer, um, every time she changed shape in the cell, would scream in horror and in pain. And the story goes is that the woman was a sorcerer on earth, and that she um, killed people, and I believe she drank their blood, but she did this in order to gain power, and this gave her the power and the ability to shapeshift on earth. Hearing that story as a little child, I was always curious of it, never knowing, how real it was or not, but it always stuck in the back of my head, as you can imagine hearing a story like that as a young child. Um, as I grew older and started to find my own path and my own ways, I ended up with a friend who was raised, she's 100% Native American, raised on a reservation. And her story goes she was put to death 3 times and raised as the basically like the holy woman for her tribe, a shaman. Well, I asked her one day what her thoughts were on the subject, and she said it's something we don't talk about. But yes, she not only believed in physical shape shifting, but has seen it with her own eyes. I believed her, and that was the second story I heard about physical shape shifting. Actually, talking to someone who said they have seen it and believe that we have the ability to do that. And the third story that I heard was from a friend of mine who practices, well, he's Haitian, and he was raised in Haitian with Haitian Voodoo, and um, he claimed that his father and himself shapeshift, and this is just what they've learned. This is what he learned from his father, and this is what they do. And I had no reason to doubt him. in that. Um, I think sometimes a high price might be paid for those who are able to do those things, or they have to be willing to um, possibly do things that a lot of people might not be willing to do, as in the case of the lady, if we believe that story in hell, what she did, and or the case of my Haitian friend who was raised in Haitian Voodoo, and it sounds like some sacrifices may have had to have been made in order for them to gain this type of power. So those would be the three main stories and or reasons why I believe. I also believe in almost anything. I've seen quite a bit myself. And so with that in mind, and also knowing the capabilities that we have, once we open and stretch our minds and don't succumb to the settling for what we've been given or what people tell us we've been given. I don't believe in limitations. I'm always pushing the boundaries. So, between that and spirit, and the spirits that we work with and deal with, I absolutely believe in that. So, that's about the extent I want to discuss or talk about physical shape shifting for this video. The second part I wanted to talk about was what they call mental, I call spiritual shape shifting, but they call it mental shape shifting. And it's where in a meditative state, you can change into any type of animal and or creature that you choose in order to accomplish something or in order to travel. Um, there are a couple of stories that I have that what I have actually experienced in mental shape shifting. I told a story before, and I should notate that I'm doing this video specifically. Um, Sage Fusion asked me to do this video, so I'm answering their question. But um, about bears in the field, that was the story I told in another video that I did. So I'll just briefly review it again. But while in meditation, I ended up walking into a field mentally, and it was a field of bears, and I didn't understand why the bears weren't paying much attention to me. And that's when I realized that as I looked around, that I was able to walk with them, and I realized that I was a bear at the time with them. So I was able to walk around with them. Now, if I end up shifting into bear when I'm meditating or traveling, it's mostly because I'm looking to gain its strength and its courage, whether it's for a working that I'm doing or something that I'm facing in my actual physical life. I will end up assuming bear for the day, for the week, even for the month. I've done that where I'll take on bear for an extended period of time in order to get through a particular phase or difficult time that I might be having where I needed that extra strength or that extra courage. Internally, when I take on bear, I feel extremely, extremely strong. And in all honesty, nothing fucks with me. I don't know how else to say it. Literally, it's almost like the Matrix at the end when the bullets were flying at Neo, and he was just able with one hand to um, deflect them. That's pretty much how it feels. It's almost a superhuman strength you feel within your spirit person, your spirit man, is how I'll describe it. And it's an amazing feeling. To have that courage and to have that strength and be willing to take on anything at that time. Uh, I've never had a problem when I assumed and took on the bear spirit when I shifted into bear. And literally, that is just transforming your spirit, your energy field is what you're doing. You're shifting it into that animal of your choice. I recommend working with your spirit animal or your totem or whatever animal you're associated with. It would just be easier to probably use that animal first, but you can shift and transform into any animal. So usually that's why I use bear. Um, and you'll find things out about each animal that you work with that you normally wouldn't otherwise if you didn't work with them. They'll share things with you that you probably did not know prior to. For bird, if I am wanting to listen in to something, I will meditate and go into bird. Um, I'm going to get more specific here in a minute, but and usually I see that as almost me running in my meditation and leaping, and I jump and I leap and I take off into bird. Now there are plenty of different ways you can do it. That's just one of the ways that I shift into bird. You have to know what animal to choose, and you have to know, in the case of bird, what bird to pick. So you want to work with, this is such a wide topic, you want to work with um, the bird that will help get your job done. If you're trying to imitate another bird, you might want to go into blue jay. If you're dealing with death and other things, you might want to go into vulture. Um, you kind of have to study the birds to know which one you want to take on, and then look into the characteristics of the bird. Look into when they rest, what they eat, what colors they are, how they get along with other birds. Um, and it's funny because you still have your human mind even when you shift, at least I do. So when I'm a bird, I won't land on a power line because um, I don't know how that would affect me. I don't know which one might be electrocuted or not. I have no idea, or have power running through it or not. So I don't land on power lines. There are certain things you still have your human mind about. So bird is good for listening in, for spying, for watching. That's a good one. Wolf is great for running in packs if you have a working that has to be done where you need multiple um, brethren with you. Wolf would be a great one to transform into. Study the wolf. They're amazing. Um, you have to make sure you're accepted into the pack that you choose, making sure they choose you once you are there. So you go slow with that and see how they react, and be respectful of all the animals that you engage with. Alligator and is probably one of my favorites. Um, um, Also, before I go into alligator, it is very helpful if you are studied or aware of the elements that your animal is in. So it's good to have a relationship with air if you're a bird, right? I mean, that makes sense. If you're a bear, be familiar with the forest, possibly. Things like that. Have a connection with the trees. In the case of alligator, the water. Be familiar with water and know that element. That helps to know the element. And I'll spend 2 to 3 months on each animal when learning them. It's actually more on the 3 month side, a little over 3 months when learning each animal. And the same with the elements, 3 to 4 months on each element. Spend time with it. When I was alligator showed me so much. Um, I have a past life dealing with alligators in the swamps, and every time I would see alligator, I'd be in the swamps. But I carefully and cautiously would get into the water with the alligators. And again, doing this mentally. Okay, let me clarify that. Um, as you meditate, you still have that fear as you meditate because you're still around these animals that are bumping into you. If you're doing this properly, you'll feel it. Um, I would get into the water slowly with alligator. It took me a while, but as I took off into the water, I ended up changing into alligator. They will bump into you, which is interesting, and you be respectful and swim with them. You'll see the young ones, the old ones, and alligator was a great animal um, for me. These animals are also able to hide your spirit. I learned, and this kind of goes a little deeper, I guess, but um, if there's ever a time when you feel the need to put your spirit, I say your spirit, aside, and you need extra protection, you can actually do that. Meditate in the morning, say before you go to work, and you can actually, depending on the animal of your choice, choose to leave it in the water with the alligators, choose to leave it in the field with the bears where they're at, and they will guard and want your spirit for you until you come home, and then you can go back, greet them, and then take it back again. um I've done that, and it's amazing what you'll learn while with them. These aren't techniques for everyone. These are techniques for those that are say brave enough, that are willing to put the time and the effort and the energy into the elements and into the animals, and to spend time meditating. It takes a lot of time, but if you already meditate and you already have a connection with the animals and the elements, you can do this. And it's very fascinating what you'll learn from each element. So, okay, I wrote down some tips I wanted to give you to mentally shapeshift. The first would be to study the animal you're wanting to become. That would be the most important, obviously. Knowing everything that you can possibly about the animal will help you in knowing which one you want to shift into for what purpose. That would be the first thing. The second is to learn the element that the animal is in and to become familiar with it, because that will also help you in your shifting and your transforming your aura, basically, is what you're doing. Um, Number three, we learn this technique. I used to study and take ninjutsu. We learn this technique when basically sneaking around walls and things like that to become the wall, right? To learn to blend in and be a shadow. That's how ninjas move, that's how they hide. So, the same in shapeshifting. Try it. For exercises, this would be my third point, is go up against a wall and blend with the wall. Try to be one with the wall. The color of the wall, the texture of the wall. You can do the same with a couch or a chair. Practice these things, and you'd be amazed how your energy will shift. Um, and you'll learn um, how to transform your energy field, your aura. Um, there's a good book I recommend, Animal Speak by Ted Andrews. He actually talks about this as well in his book. It's a really good book. I'd recommend if you don't have it already. He talks about those exercises. It's the same thing we did in Ninjutsu. It's pretty cool. Practice it, and it's interesting. I had another example in my head, but I'll hold off on that for now. Um, what else? It also helps when you're shifting to, I walk into the animal to see the animal that you're trying to shift into, to see that animal there with you, or those animals. So if you're trying to be wolf, see the wolves around you. It's easier to shift into it when you have them there in front of you, than trying to do it alone from no type of template. Um, you can also work on like disappearing and seeing your aura as fuzzy or gray mist. You can do that as well. So these are all just some techniques that might help you in shifting and mentally shifting. And I'll do another video on how to um, how to basically see, or how to see someone who might be trying to show up in your space, who has shifted, right? So basically, we're going to counter it, and see if you can determine if that animal or that creature, who the real identity is behind them. That's another technique, and it's another video for another time, but it's interesting. So it's kind of countering what we just learned today, basically identifying someone who's showing up in your life as a shifter and how you can spot them out. So okay, well, hopefully you guys have learned something here about shifting, and you know my thoughts on physical shifting now and mental shape shifting. If there are any other specific questions, I can answer. This topic is so broad, I can talk um, days on it. Oh, there is one other thing I did want to mention. If you're doing bird and you have a bird feather, I recommend wearing it, or sleeping with it under your pillow. And the same with, like, I have bear fur. So I have it made into a pouch. So I'll sleep with that when I'm trying to bond with bear, or put it next to your nightstand at night. Everything and anything you can do to bond with that animal. That was important as well. Okay, I'll end the video. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy this, please like and subscribe below. And until next time, hopefully this answered your question. Thanks for watching.